Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes you're pulling the train with your teeth, you know?
Welcome to Life, Business, and Everything in Between, the podcast for small business owners, creatives, and entrepreneurs navigating the space between big dreams and everyday chaos. I am Leslie Shields, a longtime entrepreneur married to another crazy entrepreneur and raising a tiny human in the middle of it all. This show brings you real conversations, honest insights, and practical encouragement to help you keep going. Whether you're building a brand, pivoting through change, or just trying to lead yourself, well, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Life, Business, and Everything in Between, where we talk about entrepreneurship, life, and the messy middle. And today I have one of my favorite women, Gail Stouffer, to join us. And I'm going to let her give a little intro about herself and her business, and then we'll talk a bit about how we know each other.
Let's see. Hi, everybody. I'm Gail Stouffer. I am an entrepreneur, a mother, a girlfriend, a sister, all the things. This is my first really long-term business. I've been working in this for about 20 years, and I love it. And I'm very fortunate that, you know, my hard work has blossomed into a very successful business and career. You know, there have been a lot of steps forward and stumbles along the way, but you know, I'm really proud to say that I've made it through the harder part of my journey. But even in spite of that, I keep throwing out more.
You do.
To start and try.
And
the journey's not done. Yeah, the journey's not done. So that's who I am. I've got a positive outlook toward most things. I'm a little Mary Sunshine, so I have to be careful, like not to always, you know, blue sky it all. But otherwise, you know, I'm what everybody says. Oh, I'm what you see is what you get. But I'm not really a good poker face. So you're going to get the real deal today.
I think that's why we get along so well. Is because it's very real every time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And real for me today is that I'm here with still wet hair because I own a health insurance agency and it's Q4. And I have started to, while I have tried very hard to not get into taking the client calls and let my producers do that and let my employees handle it, they have started to get overloaded and full, like they're booked out, right? And so I'm having to step in and take overflow. And so this morning I got to take 2 client calls and it's monsooning outside. So here I am with my wife, mom, and business owner, wet hair, doing a podcast.
Well, I can so relate. So this morning, up at 5:30, trying to like wake up, have the coffee, put on my Pilates clothes in the dark, you know, while my partner's sleeping, and kind of get the woken up, fight the traffic to go to the Pilates studio. From there, still like a mess, a real mess. Picking my mother up for her 9 o'clock doctor's appointment, dropping her off. And then my partner, Eric, who is wonderful, picked her up from the doctor so I could come home, take a shower, and get camera ready for you.
Yeah.
So I'm still, and having employees texting me while I'm like with the blow dryer. So it is what we do. It is.
I mean, Gail, are you really a business owner if you haven't taken a Zoom call with an employee with your camera off because you're still getting dressed?
Oh, my employees are very used to that, but you know, the reality is they're used to seeing me with the wet head and no makeup.
I was with a friend of mine who owns a business, and she was on with an employee in the other room, and I heard her say, "Okay, I have to take you with me to pee because that's where we're at today."
Luckily, I have set a few boundaries, and that is one of them.
That's one
None
of
of
them.
that. None of that.
That is where we're at today. Isn't
and
it?
I think they would prefer, let me take a 2-minute break.
Yeah. I don't know. We had a conversation about pull-ups yesterday because one of our producers is taking 26 calls a day, and we're just poking at her for fun and saying, "Do we need to get you pull-ups? So you take it?" She's like, "I just need."
Like it's all diapers. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't. Because she has so many back-to-back calls. So that's where we're at. All right. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Kiln Frog?
Sure.
And kind of your new evolutions of your business. And then let's talk a little bit about your first, because this is not your first entrepreneurial gig. So let's tell a little bit of your kind of timeline of entrepreneurial journey.
Okay. My current company, let me start out with, I own a kind of an umbrella company, a parent corporation. And the parent corporation owns my LLCs, which are separate lines of business. So, and I highly recommend that for anybody who's thinking of branching off into doing multiple things. Not that I'm your attorney or an accountant or anything like that, and I'm not giving advice, but for me, it's really worked out because, there are times where one business might need to loan another one some money to launch or something like that. So those little things are helpful. So my primary business is kilnfrog.com, and it's kind of just like what it sounds like. We sell kilns, ovens, and furnaces, but not the kind that are culinary. We sell within the direct-to-consumer market. About 65% of our business is direct-to-consumer, and that's everything from grandma in her garage who wants to make mugs and plates and bowls out of pottery to professional artists, studios, people who are working in heat treating, for knife makers, people who are farriers that make horseshoes. We're selling to the end user on who is a maker. So they're either making something out of glass, typically resin, clay, or metal, some type of metal. And anyone who needs a box that gets hot.
Yep.
And then the other 35% of our business is in what I'm going to call commercial and industrial.
Those are the big guys.
It's, much bigger companies who are purchasing multiple units. It's also institutions like schools. Many of us grew up with, having art class. Do they still have art class? I think they do.
They do. But we didn't do that. Maybe they did ceramic. I don't remember that being a thing, but I was not super into the art department either.
So I was an art geek. I still am. You would make mugs and bowls and do things, and they would put them in the kiln and all of that at school. Mm-hmm. So we sell to colleges, universities, independent ISDs, private schools, and then we also sell through big corporations, and our customer base is everywhere from Tesla, who is heat treating parts for going into rockets or car manufacturing, down to people who are like Corning, who are doing testing R&D on glass, all kinds of industrial ceramics. It's really.
How did you find this industry? Because it's a super niche industry.
It's super niche. So how I started, and let me just back up really quickly. So we own a separate company called Heat Treat Now, which is a separate line of business where we specialize in customizing what our manufacturers can do for large corporate customers who might be like GE Aerospace or different refractory manufacturers. And it is a smaller business, but the sales are much larger and much more customized. And it's really very interesting. It really satisfies the sciencey techie girl in me.
Because you're getting to consult. You're having the call. You're finding out the need. You're working.
It's a much more consultative sale than just ching on the website.
Yeah.
Average ticket on these, just so anybody is curious, like the average order value is over $2,000 on even in our direct to consumer company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that you're thinking about and you're saving up for, or maybe you're going to have a business or something like that you would be using these for. So how did I get started in this? This is kind of, I jokingly say I fell ass backward into it. I have a 18-year career in corporate communications. I graduated from school with a BFA, and even though I did lots of studio art, it was really concentrated on public relations and communications. And so I worked in the corporate world. I sold medical communications for pharmaceutical companies. We developed all kinds of marketing and communications programs for also technical niche type of industries. Mm-hmm. And in 3 months after 9/11, there was a huge corporate contraction. The world stopped for a long time. And I worked for a company that was also owned in part by Enron, which was a thing. They were a very large energy company in Texas that overly invested, kind of had some creative accounting issues, and although they were very large, very inflated, they had a lot of investments, and all the companies they invested in had to contract. And so I got laid off. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of head scratching. What am I going to do? What do I want to do? I had a 3-year-old boy at the time, and my husband, who is now my ex-husband, but my husband said, why don't you do your art while you're looking for a job? And I thought, okay, this is a good creative outlet. And so I started making jewelry. And at first it was wire wrapping and whatever I could do with my hands to keep busy. And then I started casting and doing metal clay and getting involved in glass. And I realized I needed a kiln. And I was familiar with kilns because in college I had taken some pottery classes. I had studio arts background. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I need to buy a kiln. And so I started doing research, and I ended up purchasing a little kiln, which was a great product. And I started making work. And the more work I made, the more kilns I needed. So the next thing I knew, within 6 months, I had 4 little kilns, and I'm just cranking out stuff. And all of a sudden I had inventory, haha. And so my husband said, what are you going to do with all this stuff?
Yeah, all this stuff that
I don't know. I've given everybody all the gifts and all of that. So I think I better make a way to like sell this. And, you know, being kind of this business headed person, I'm like, all this money I spent, I better have a write-off. Yeah. So I decided I better...
Profitability's next. Let's start with a write-off.
Right. So I thought, okay. So of course, you know, we were completely in the red. I had a 6-figure salary. We lost all that money coming in. Here I'm spending money trying to learn something new and something new. And by the way, I'm looking for a job, and there weren't any. And
because what year was it?
This was 2002. Yeah. Right after 9/11. So maybe 6 to 8 months after.
You know what's funny is, so people talk about 2008 and the recession and not having jobs in that, but I graduated high school in 2002 and graduated college in 2006, and there weren't jobs in 2006 either. So like after 9/11, all the way through right into the recession was just this like really terrible job market.
Okay, so for anybody who's trying to do the math, I'm 60. So, so when this happened, I was 36. 35, 30, yeah. I was turning 36. And so, again, I have a 3-year-old. We've now had our household income cut in half. I maybe should have been more concerned, but I kind of had faith the universe was going to take care of me.
And any disposition.
Yeah, glass half full, silly
Yeah.
me. Um, but the long and the short of it is that I started doing craft shows and selling my work, and it gave me a lot of affirmation that I was maybe on the right track. And by the end of the first year of doing this, I found that I was really disinterested in going back to the corporate world.
Yeah.
I realized, they call us entrepreneurs unemployable. And I started becoming unemployable. I I liked setting my own schedule. I liked having the freedom to make my own decisions. I I would have liked to have made more profit, but it was the right thing for my lifestyle at the time. So I was a maker. And I was eking out a little tiny profit, but it really wasn't enough given what I was doing on um, previously and what our expenses were. So my husband was kind of like, you need to either build this into something or you're going to have to take a job. And so I thought, let's give it one more year and see if I can build it into something. We had, we tried to juggle some things financially to make that work. And, um, while my son was at preschool, we were, I was making things. And then on the weekends, my husband would watch him. And then I would go sell the things that I made. And I kind of became, I think it's probably because I'm a helper by nature, and I when I'm passionate about something, I can't help but want to share it.
Yeah.
So and I had sales presentation experience, so I didn't have any problem teaching people what I knew, and in a way that made it comfortable for them to learn. I have an academic mind, but kind of a street smart personality. So I wanted to make things accessible. And someone came into my little trade show booth and said, would you be interested in teaching? And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And so I started teaching community ed. And then community ed turned into teaching at one of the local arts and craft colleges here in town, Southwest School of Art. And um, I became known as a teacher and a maker, and that was wonderful. Um, I had a friend who said, let me help you launch this a little bit bigger, and we opened a storefront and started selling supplies and materials. And then we had a teaching studio in the storefront and a little gallery in front where people could buy what I made. And I invited other artists to join me and also teach. And we had a really wonderful artist collective for maybe about 12 years. It was really terrific. And
That's super fulfilling because you get to be in a community, you get to live your passion.
And I got to share that with my child also, which he got to be part of that tribe. And, as a little kid, he'd come in and make and be nurtured, and that was a really positive environment for him as well. And it worked for my lifestyle. My son is special needs. So knowing that I had this strong artistic community that was super supportive around me.
And typically neurodivergent themselves, right?
Yes. And I probably have little flavors of that in there.
The arts community tends to lean that direction for sure.
Yeah. So I was very, very fortunate in that respect. And the community supported it, and it was financially viable. And my friend, who was my business partner, she managed the business side of things for me. And I managed the artistic and creative piece. And so we grew it until about 2000. And so this started in 2002. We opened in 2003 at the commercial studio. I still taught locally as well as in my own space. And then but about 2007, that's kind of when the internet started really blossoming. And we said, we need a website. So we created a website and we started putting items that we sold in the storefront in our brick and mortar on the website. And we would sell here and there. But we also had always sold kilns to our students because just about everything that we did involved using a kiln. You had to heat it in some way to get to the end result. And so we probably were selling about $100,000 worth of kilns a year by 2007.
Were we making a profit on those at that time?
Like, yeah, they were profitable to sell, yeah. But it really wasn't the focus of the business. It was like, oh yeah, well, to do what we just taught you to do, you need this. And some people would buy it and some people didn't. And sometimes they would do, like, we'd have this thing called Open Studio where they'd pay us a fee and they'd come do art in our studio classroom, and then we'd fire the work for them, which is pretty common within the arts and crafts world. But we had people who wanted to have their own little home workshops. And so we sold lots of kilns, about 100,000 a year just in Central Texas.
Yeah.
And so we
just in your community, like in your circle and the people who are around you, right?
San Antonio, Austin, and the surrounding communities.
Yeah.
And so, I was satisfied with that and happy and raising my son. And by this time he's about 10, 11. And so we realized in the course of 2 years, by about 2009, we realized that the World Wide Web really was worldwide, and that our vision and our focus was too narrow. Mm-hmm. And there was also a lot of there were a lot of competitive makers studios. Mm-hmm. And we decided it made more sense to launch a new company, a new web-based company, and that was not affiliated in brand or financially with our brick and mortar.
Yep.
So in 2010, we launched kilnfrog.com. It's now 2025, December of 2025, and we're about to be, 16 years old in January.
A quick thank you to our sponsor, The Shields Agency. The Shields Agency is the insurance agency behind this podcast and the work I do every day. We support entrepreneurs, small businesses, and independent contractors with health insurance and benefits. But more importantly, we help people make intentional decisions during busy seasons of life. We work with founders and growing teams who want benefits that support real humans, retention, and long-term sustainability, not just checking a box. Our approach is consultative and educational because no two businesses or families look the same. If you're ready for a more thoughtful approach to insurance and benefits, the Shields Agency would love to support you. And now, back to life, business, and everything in between.
So I have some questions because you've been having...
I'm going to keep talking about it because I love it.
Fun with you building your business. And I know what that looks like in my household. And in my household, that's a lot of juggling. It's a lot of scheduling. It's a lot of developing the culture of your business that is comfortable and friendly and accepting of having your child in your space. And I know sometimes, we run into clients, especially, during this busy time of year. I've got producers taking calls after 5. They've got kids in the house. Everybody works from home. We're making it all happen. And occasionally I'll have somebody who makes a complaint and says, I just thought it was just so rude that I heard a child in the back. And I'm like, well, that's our culture. That's who we are, and that's what we support. And we're giving you our time and doing the best we can to pull it all off. And if that's not something you're comfortable with, then maybe we're not the agency for you.
I totally understand that. Number one, everyone who I worked with was a mom.
Helps.
And all of our employees and so many of our vendors understood what family business is. So that was the first thing. Second of all, my son was school age at this point. So he was gone from 8:30 in the morning to about 3:30. And that saying, it takes a village, it does. My mom picked him up from school a few days a week. I hired a local high school girl who was I think she was a high school sophomore at the time, so she stayed with us for 3 years, and she would meet Will at the house when he got dropped off, and she'd help him with homework after school, and until I got there, which honestly was really a blessing for him and for me, because he got input and support from multiple people around him. It wasn't just mom, 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 and dad, dad, dad.
It changes who they are, for sure.
Right. And I have to give my ex a ton of credit, because, he was really supportive. He stepped up. He wanted to make sure that what I was doing was going to be successful and not have me, pressured. But he traveled a lot. So he was gone out of the picture a good deal of time. And so I had to come up with a support system. And that was a huge deal, to know that I had other women that had my back. And that makes a huge difference. Most customers got it. There weren't many times where we missed a beat. Mm-hmm. But when you're surrounded by other moms, if you can't do the momming, sometimes other moms swoop in and help you, and they do the momming for you. So
yeah, it does. It makes a difference.
There were really many, many lovely women I got to depend on.
Yeah, that is a moment. My tribe has made such difference, and I'm very lucky to have you in it. Very, very lucky to have you in it.
I'm so pleased and grateful to be in it.
Yes,
it does make a big difference.
Yeah, and that's why
we've done without so many of them, and they became not only colleagues but dear, dear, wonderful friends. And I look back and say, well, why aren't I closer with these particular people now? And they've moved on with their lives. Mm-hmm. I've moved on with my lives. Yes. Different things have happened, but I hold them so dear.
So dear. I was thinking about that this morning. Is like, it's seasons of people for different places of your life, and people step in and make a huge difference. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be there forever, but you can always, they're always here. They're always very close.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, universe, please let them know how valuable and important they were. Hopefully I'll be able to share that.
Absolutely. And now you're in the grown-up version of your business, in the evolution of your journey, and you're doing some really big stuff. You've launched a few companies, and you've got some.
Yeah. There's always an interim space when you're building. You're on the trajectory, and you see the goal that's up here, and you're on the trajectory to get there. And of course you want it to be like overnight that you're going to get from here to here, but it doesn't happen that way. It is
and it goes this way and that way and this way, and then back too.
You're trudging through thick mud sometimes. Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes you're pulling the train with your teeth, and there were many years where it felt like that push to just get to that first milestone. Mm-hmm. And we got to the first milestone, and then things flattened out. And we were very flat for probably 4 or 5 years, and debating whether this goal here was realistic and all of that. And it took a mindset shift. So the business is going to be 16 years old. About 6 years ago, and I'm telling this story for a reason, and it'll be clear in a moment. About 6 years ago, it became very clear to the girl who was my business partner and I that we didn't share the same vision of where we wanted to go. And I think that is why we stayed flat for so long, because we had different risk tolerances. We had different, even though we said the vision was the same,
it really was.
The reasons for the vision were different. the motivations to get there were different. And what we were willing to do from a risk tolerance standpoint was very different. And we kind of came to that pivotal place of, are we just going to stay here? Are we going to exit? Have we hit the wall? Or does one of us have to change? And so after some bristling to figure it out, and it was an uncomfortable time, I purchased my partner's shares in the business and then took over. So that was about 6 years ago, a little more than that. And I made some more calculated risks and choices that we were not making when we were in our partnership. And that was able to start the engine moving again.
And so I want anybody who's kind of listening to our podcast to think about some of the evolutions of Gail's journey here. So we had a job loss, which led to a business, which led to a growing business, and being a mom with a little kid in business and what that looked like, and having a business partner, and then the separation of the partnership. And how many different ways this journey can go. And if somebody is listening to this and in a part of their journey that maybe they feel like they're swimming or drowning, or they don't know what's next, I think listening to Gail's story and really tuning in. And for me, what I pick up on, and one of the things I lean into really hard, is mindset, right? Mindset, and seeing yourself on the other side. And I'm interested to learn more about some of this risk tolerance and
we need to
you made in the business, which have elevated you.
Sure. My business partner and I don't, she could share her story. I'm just going to share my view on it. My business partner and I were so close friends, as well as colleagues and business partners. And we saw each other through the dissolution of both of our marriages. We raised our children who were the same age together. And so when that decision point came in to buy her out, it was almost like a death, because it didn't.
I feel it, like I have goosebumps.
It was painful emotionally, but it also was almost, we had become kind of a little toxic toward each other. I wanted this, she wanted that. There was a lot of push-pull. We could not find common ground in which to grow the business. And it spilled over into our personal lives, and there was a lot of toxicity. And, looking back on it, it kind of breaks my heart that we couldn't figure out how to remain friends and somehow grow on the journey together. And that was hard. So I think that the risk tolerance piece that I'm talking about was that when I was married, my husband had made a good living. And I was able to take less money I wanted to take less money and put more into the business so we could grow it. And then my business partner was in the opposite position, that her marriage was dissolving and she did not have the funds to do that. So we were kind of a 50-50, either we're doing it together or we're not at the time. So we could not invest in the business to make it grow. Then when we decided that, we were going to part ways, I then became single. And I also was like, I was scared. What am I going to do about making a living and all that? I can't take less. So I had to figure out some creative ways, and I took a loan. I took an SBA loan to buy her out, and that was some risk because we never had debt in all of the years of the business.
I find that women in general don't like to take out money on their businesses to grow. And
you're told that debt equals failure.
Yes.
You're told that somehow if you can't, that
Pull it off.
as a woman, that debt is a bad thing. And part of this is also generational, I have to say. Debt was it meant you were somehow less than if you had debt. And I wasn't trained to be a corporate thinker either. I was trained to have a corporate job, but not be a business thinker and not.
And you gotta have money to grow.
Yeah,
you have to have money to grow. We just had a loan about 2 or 3 years ago to buy a business, and that to something that would be profitable. We purchased something that would make us money, and then we had to take out more than we needed for that purchase. But because of that, we've had money to put into marketing. We've had room to take risk because we had windfall.
Yes, exactly. So that was helpful. The other thing that was helpful is I decided to, I shrunk my life. I didn't go buy a house. I didn't buy an expensive car. I really shrunk my needs so that I didn't have to take more out of the business, and I could pour into getting the right employees to help me. Finding the right
employees at this point?
Coming and going. It was really the two of us, and we'd have a part-timer here or there, or a contractor or an agency, but it was really the two of us.
Yeah.
And until I realized that I needed a think tank, I needed strong people to row the boat with me who had arms as strong as me, metaphorically. As business owners, many times we're very myopic, and we see that, if I don't row this boat, if I'm not the head, if I'm not the one doing all the heavy lifting, then somehow we're not going to get where we need to go.
But that's how you burn out. And then you start going back down because you can't grow when you're exhausted and not taking care of yourself.
Absolutely. So I was very fortunate. I ran across a guy he's still with me. He's our director of sales and customer experience, Paul. He's a gem. And he was actually one of my glass students. And he had his own business. He had just concluded his business and exited, and he was looking for something to do. And he had a great Kiln knowledge base and a great customer service attitude. And he gave me the wings to start. He gave me the wings to start working on the business and getting out of some of the day-to-day, and allowing me to see the business from 30,000 feet instead of being right in the middle of the mud of it.
Makes such a big difference. We had a couple. Gail's journey is there, and since we're such close friends, I know more and more pieces of this, and we could go on and on and on. And so much of it has been incredibly inspirational to me. For me in my life, she's someone who always answers the phone when I call and talks me off the ledge.
Always.
Because there's lots of ledges in entrepreneurship. In being a mom, a wife, and entrepreneurship, there's lots of ledges.
Oh, yeah.
But if we were going to give some takeaways for some of the people who might be listening or want to share this with somebody in their life, what would be a piece of the journey that you want to make sure that they
know? Okay. Fear is completely normal. And you are stupid if you're not afraid when you take a loan, or when you do something you haven't done, when you hire new people, when you hire new agencies or contractors to come in and do a job for you. Having those butterfly fear, I hope I'm doing the right thing feelings, that's normal. I've been really, gosh, I gotta make a shout out to my sister, who is a 35-year female entrepreneur. She owned her company for 35 years, sold it recently. and for a great return. I'm very proud of her. But she's always been a huge mentor. So I could pick up the phone and call her and say, I'm so scared to do this. What do you think? And, my instinct wanted her to tell me, oh, it's going to be okay, and have her pat me on the head and have everything be fine. And she would say, it's normal to be scared and you might make a mistake. But it's not the mistakes that define you. It is what you do once you realize it, and go ahead, how do you navigate when there's pressure on? Everybody has a chance to make good decisions, bad decisions, mediocre decisions, and you don't know that the decision you're making is the perfect one when you're making it. And giving yourself that grace of saying, this is normal for me to be scared and afraid, and yes, I'm a little bit of a Mary Sunshine, but I would always think of what's the worst thing that can happen.
Because taking risks and being an innovator is never easy. It's never easy.
I used to have panic attacks when I was young because I was so focused on the worst thing that could happen, instead of saying, you know what, there's only a 10% chance that can happen. But I need to be aware of it and watch out for, are we on the skids?
So I had somebody talk me out of a ledge this morning because I'm getting really wrapped up in one piece of information that could be the end of the world. But she's like, but that hasn't happened yet. And you don't actually know that that's going to happen.
Right.
And I need you to step back and pull yourself out of the rabbit hole a little bit, because you are attaching yourself to this one detrimental outcome that very well may not even happen. Right. You got to see yourself on the other side. And so absolutely. So you've been
understanding and being prepared for, worst case scenario is, but also framing that in the right mindset and saying that worst case scenario is a very low percentage. And what really is going to happen, what is that saying? Shoot for the moon and you'll be, or for the stars, and if you're lucky you'll land on the moon. That's kind of how I approach it these days, because
persistency. Persistency.
But the older you get, hopefully the more resilient you get. After you peel yourself off the ground enough times, you're like, oh, I know what this is.
It's easier.
Right. I know how to peel myself back up. I can do that.
Yeah, I can do it, and I can do it again. Yeah, absolutely. So if you have a couple different things going on, so why don't you share where people can find you for what different pieces, and then maybe some of the exciting new things you have out as well.
Okay. The place where I am the most is at kilnfrog.com. And, you can always find me at customer service at kilnfrog.com. My team will make sure I get that info or the message. We're also at heattreatnow.com. So 2 T's, heattreatnow.com. And that's customer service there as well. We are launching, and I should probably back up. It's funny, this is kind of full circle.
Yeah.
Education's always been important to me. It's really been an important part of how I approach our customer base, and frankly, how I approached my life. I went back in my 40s to get my master's degree because I didn't feel comfortable teaching people without knowing I had training on how to teach. And, just because you think you're doing all the right things doesn't necessarily mean you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So I wanted a little more academic underpinning to what I was doing. It's allowed me to build a knowledge base and kind of become a technical expert in my field. And so over the last 20 something years, I guess 24 years now, I've built this knowledge base, which has turned into a 300-page book. So it is a textbook. Who knew there'd be 300 pages to say about kilns and ovens, used in industry and making and all of that? But there is. And all of the information that I've amassed and put together, and with the help of a big community of makers, manufacturers, my team at the companies. We're going to be launching in January as a downloadable ebook. It'll also be able to be purchased as a hard copy, and it comes with a companion 2-hour video kind of walking through the highlights of the book. We also have plans later for a Q&A app and some other things coming down the pike. So that will be our third line of business, and it's called Kiln Academy. Kiln Academy will have its own .com. The website will launch in January, and you'll be able to come there to get all the educational materials about kilns. So as a maker, there's never been one resource that you could turn to that was a comprehensive guide for how to use this incredible piece of equipment that every maker needs to have if they're working with those types of.
And I don't know if I told you this yet, but you recently inspired me to start a book as well. Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah. TBD, it is in the very, very beginning frameworks, but we're going to be talking about hiring and hiring non-traditionally.
Wow, that's really important and really
neat. It'll probably be out by the end of 26 because we're just in the beginning stages of it. I've got a couple chapters in. I've done it, and I didn't know I was going to be interviewing people for the book, but once I started talking to other business owners about what I was doing, they were like, I hire these kind of people. This is how I started my business. I was like, wait a second, there are more stories to tell here. There are more perspectives to include. And so now I'm starting a round of interviews and talking to people about how small business owners, how they hire and where they found success and how they've been able to tap into talent pools that aren't traditionally tapped into.
That is really important. It's not like there's a bunch of kiln salesmen out there that I can just pluck out of thin air. There aren't. Yeah. This industry is very niche. There isn't anyone who has a ton of experience selling these products. So, we look for people who have the right stuff and then teach them the subject matter and get them involved as a maker.
As a maker, there's so much more to come there. Gail, why don't you tell them again your website, and then maybe if you're more LinkedIn or Facebook heavy, where they can find you?
Well, you can always find me on LinkedIn, Gail Stouffer, and I am the president of Kiln Frog and Heat Treat Now and Kiln Academy. So any of those .coms, so kilnfrog.com, heattreatnow.com, and kilnacademy.com.
Thank you so much, Gail, for being on the podcast. I'm so happy to have you in my life and couldn't wait to share your story with others.
Me too. Yeah, you didn't tell them.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. We didn't even tell them that. Well, we met through EO Women. And you guys hear me talk a lot about EO on the podcast, just because it's also how I've met a lot of the really great women in my life. And so, tribes of women in business do incredible things. Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to Life, Business, and Everything in Between. If today's episode gave you something to think about or made you feel less alone in the hustle, we'd love it if you follow the show and share it with a friend. Real stories, real talk, and just enough chaos to keep it interesting. We'll see you next time.